We are live.
Live.
Live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Vintage Rescue Squad. George is going to be joining us around 8:30 or so because he is having his premiere right now. And Alex should be joining us at any time as well. So we wanted to go ahead and get the chat started. I see we have a lot of people.
We do.
Let's see. The first person there she is.
Everybody's favorite Karen.
Everybody's favorite Karen Radford. Karen she's been traveling a lot, so she was kind of confused. She didn't know where she was. She's walking around trying to figure out where she was. Yeah, that's typically Michael on a daily basis.
That's the state I live in.
Right. Especially Michael wasn't supposed to work today, but he had to work today. So he's
so I didn't move. I didn't paint either.
He's doing some things behind a blue screen now. He's becoming a weatherman.
And a Oompa Loompa all at the same time.
So Karen Michael's walking right around there with you in a state of constant confusion. So
amen.
Mick is here. Hello, Mick, and Zira and Tiger. Penny Sue, hello. And let's see who else. We've got Cheryl and Tammy, Jeanette, Jane, Jersey Gypsy, aka Lisa. Hey, Lisa. Antique Agenda. Hello, everybody. So glad that you guys are joining us tonight. Oh, thank you, Julie. I got my roots done today, which is great. I was born a blonde. I know it's hard to believe, but a darker blonde. But to keep up with blonde is a lot of work. Luckily, I have a great magician.
There you go.
Jessica, thank you for getting me coiffed all nicely today. Hi, Andrea and Evan. I don't know if Evan is watching or not, but hello, Evan. Hello.
Evening.
So yeah, we're just, like I said, George is going to be about 30 minutes late. Alex is going to be popping on. He is very, very busy. I did send him a link. Oh, thanks, David. I did send him a link, so
I thought he was talking to me, but okay.
Oh, well, I mean, maybe. Maybe. So I will say things that we're going to be talking a little bit about tonight is, with reselling in general, and kind of talking a little bit about some places that you can go to look for if you're looking for, to research comps on specific items. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about just reselling in general. If you are a reseller, I know that sometimes people will say, I'm not a reseller, but this just fascinates me, so I'm glad that it does. But I also wanted to touch a little bit about kind of stages of burnout, or where you feel like your place is in this community, as either buying, selling, and that sort of thing. So I want to talk about that a little bit as well too. And while we're up here talking, which is all fine and good, and that's great, please know that you all in the chat are welcome to join right along with us and talk about, some of the things that your frustrations are, or some questions. I will say, if you do have a question, it's helpful if you put it in all caps. So it's kind of like, I have a question. It's real big. We try to get to as many as we can, but just know that if you're asking a question, we can try to answer it. But if you have some tips or some advice or some little things that you want to say, you can just, feel free to answer and join in as well. We welcome everybody. It takes a village.
Amen.
It takes a village. Oh, wait, I saw Nan. Nan, how you doing? I hope you're good. I will say that Jay, I don't know if she's in the chat, Jay sent me a picture of some candles that were acrylic and they had fur inside them.
Oh.
And I was like, we cannot share these with Nan, because you really don't want to light those on fire. So that would not be a good candle for Nan.
No. I worry about Nan in any candle. I mean, even those that are meant to be burnt.
Well, Nan's very careful, but Nan likes fire. We think.
Mhm.
I want to say real quick as well, happy birthday to Miss Pamela Blanchard, the sweetheart of the reselling community.
Happy birthday, lady.
There she is. We love you, Miss Pamela. You know, she just makes your day so much brighter. If you are not subscribed to Miss Pamela Blanchard's channel, Oak Grove Mercantile, wish her a happy birthday. Go on over there and subscribe to her channel.
Mm-hmm.
She's wonderful. She has a live sale every Saturday night, and she is the sweetheart of the reselling community.
Pamma Bama.
Pamma Bama. That is right. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
everybody said, happy birthday, Miss Pamela. And she always says hi to everybody.
She most certainly does.
She does. I
Mm-hmm.
can't. I'm always so paranoid that I'm going to forget somebody. It's like if I am participating in a chat, I will sit and write everybody's down if I had to do that because I'd be so paranoid. All right. Aw. Oh, hey, Matthew. Yes, yes. You know, we have to keep our roots done when we want to be blonde.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let me just scroll back up here to see if I'm missing anything. Again, make sure that you do put in any questions that you might have for Michael and I, George and Alex, when they join as well. A little bit of, something that Michael and I have been talking a lot about lately is, let me get that off of there. Content.
Okay,
So
yeah.
Michael, do you want to elaborate a little bit about what we've kind of been talking about a little bit? Do you feel comfortable doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally comfortable with it. I think, for me is a lot of it is keep in mind a lot of this has been occurring of late, I would say within like the last month. I
Yeah,
think is really about the kind of content that I have been putting out. And I think because I have been doing YouTube now a little over a year, and I feel that I'm more capable of putting out, I think, more dynamic content than just shop with me's. The
yeah,
problem with that is that anybody that is doing a video knows that it's not just the filming, but it's the editing and it's everything else that goes into really wanting to create a product that people can enjoy.
yeah,
And it's time consuming. So to do a lot of the things that I would like to do, it's still, hey, Mikey, it's still vintage, it's still antiques, but I would like to do more than just shop with me's.
yeah,
Not that I'm going to stop doing them, not that I don't like doing. I love doing those. I love the experience. I love taking folks on the treasure hunt. But I would like to do more.
yeah,
I don't want to be a one-trick pony. It gets boring. It is. It gets boring. It gets monotonous. As much as we may love our favorite content creator, after a while, if they just keep doing the same thing over and over and over, I mean, how many times, you know what I mean? Truth be told,
yeah,
for me, and that's just, again, it's just something that's really been taking up a lot of room in my thought
yeah.
process of late. So, yeah.
Well, I know that there are a lot of people. I know there have been some content creators, some that I follow that have multiple channels, and I don't know how they do it. Like and it's something that my husband has suggested to me. He has said, why don't you have a channel just for your live sales and have a channel just for like your shop with me's and your vlogs and that kind of thing. And I just don't want to. I want it all to be all.
You're
Wait,
juggling. Because
yeah,
then
I
it
want it
feels
to
like
be.
you're
I was like,
juggling.
what did I do?
She's like, oh my God, it's a code somewhere.
Is there an earthquake? But I want my channel to be all encompassing of me, whether that
Yeah.
I'm having a lifestyle. And the thing I know that a lot of people don't necessarily like to watch the lives or the sales or what have you, and that's okay. In my opinions, if they don't, then they don't need to. If that's not the content that they want to
Right.
watch, they don't have to watch that particular video. And I know that there is like a whole big, long, drawn out, probably mathematical equation as far as
Yeah.
your retention and all that. I don't pay attention to any of that stuff. We can get so bogged down in looking at what our numbers are, and Michael and I have had this conversation several times. if we just stay right where we're at, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with the content that I'm doing. I'm happy with, the sales. I'm happy with it. And the second that I'm not, I'm going to stop. And that's a little bit too that, one thing that, we wanted to talk about with Alex and stuff too, is I know that, him closing his brick and mortar. And I 100% know what that's like. It's a lot of time. You put a lot of time and a sacrifice time away from your family, and your weekends are just completely filled with, having that brick and mortar. And it's a lot. It's a lot. So when I had heard that when I watched that video that he was doing that, I was like, I felt that in my soul, because I've been there. And I know when George, I about said George of the Jungle. No, when George
Uh,
joins us, he has ran many and managed many antique malls. And so he kind of knows that whole thing. And Michael, you being a retail manager, you know what it's like to be kind of stuck. You feel like you're stuck in this place.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
Stuck. And
Yeah.
I think all of us, that feeling of being stuck isn't being a content creator. It's not being a reseller. It's being a human being.
Right.
Regardless of whatever career path or job that we have, or maybe that's maybe a little bit more personal than that. And we get those feelings of feeling stuck. Like, am I living to my potential? And, um, speaking of Alex, one thing that he said that I really liked is just because you have a vision, and especially if you are graced or blessed with the fulfillment of that dream or that ideal, and you've done it for a while, that doesn't mean that you have to stop there, right?
Right.
That's we're by nature, I think we're explorers. We should want to grow and to continue to experience new things and evolve. I think is the big thing, and in involving, a lot of times our priorities shift.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you're putting out reselling content, and I mean, that's what we do. I mean, that's what my job description is. That's what I consider myself. I consider myself a reseller who happens, well, see, and
yeah,
the crazy thing too, because you talk about, do you consider yourself a reseller or a content creator? But yet I'm both, because my job is my live sales. I mean, that's how I earn my living, is through creating content, doing the live sales. But I also create the content because you need to build your audience, in order to kind of do this successfully full time, to make it make sense. Because I think that we kind of always feel like you have to kind of keep up with the Joneses, and and I don't, if you know me, I don't like the term like smaller channel and bigger channel. I don't like
right,
that stereotype. But I mean, even, you know, I know that as a smaller channel, and I know because I remember what it's like. You were just doing whatever you can to get seen. And you're jumping up and like, look at me, look at me, look at me. I have this channel. Come subscribe. And you're trying everything you can to get seen and get noticed. And sometimes the algorithms just are what they are. But you have to also make sure that you're doing everything you can as far as using your tags and your titles and your thumbnails and all that kind of thing. Seeing when the best times to post your videos, not so. But even saying that as a quote unquote larger channel, we still feel like we're sometimes going through the motions of, look at me, look at me, look at me. Oh, Sherry.
Sherry Jones says, "Don't bother trying to keep up with the Joneses. We're not doing so great."
Well, it sometimes it's not, it's not great to have that name, just like if you're a Karen. We love you,
Mhm.
Karen Radford. We love lots of Karens. But it can be very taxing when you lay your head on your pillow at night. You have to I think, just say, have I done everything to make myself proud? I don't know. It's kind of a tricky thing, because there is a level of frustration when you are trying to grow and trying to build, but yet at the same time, I'm okay with being where I'm at as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. It's a
Well, and I think
problem.
that though too, and I don't, and trust me, I don't. It's not lost on me, and I don't, and I will say for Misty that, I do consider myself a smaller channel.
Yeah.
And I
Me
think that's the
too.
thing though. That's the thing though, is and I guess that, like, I don't look at it just in this sphere of this tiny bubble. We exist within the realm of YouTube, and we are a small channel. We are a tiny channel, and there are channels that are even smaller than us, and there are channels that are massive, millions, millions. And I guess at the end of the day, and again, it still sticks with me. Michelle Newton's Cupboard said, your happiness is defined, should be defined only by what it is that you want to get out of it. And that looks different for everybody. So just as Sherry was saying, comparing yourself against the Joneses, or the idea or the concept of a bigger or smaller channel. The point that I was going to make is that it's not lost, I don't think, on anybody that maybe these that channels that have fewer viewers or subscribers than us would say, well, it's easy to say you're good with where you're at because you have more followers. Do you know what you know
Yeah.
and I get that though too, but I consider myself a small channel though. That's the thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's not some ego driven statement, or that's not a glib statement to say I'm good with where I'm at.
Right.
You're good with where you're at because you've worked to get to where you are.
Right. Yeah. Well, and
Mhm.
I'm gonna highlight a few
Yeah.
comments. Gosh, the shell. Gosh, some of you guys have the fanciest sounding names.
Le Beau, Badorni. And then I
I
just
mean,
butchered your last.
and you're on Facebook. And it always makes my little heart happy when I see someone commenting from Facebook, because this is streaming on Facebook as well. So that makes me happy. Um, all these social platforms are so overwhelming, especially when you're the only one doing it. How do you do it all? Yeah, I do it all by myself. It is. And you do get like, I don't know about you, but I know that sometimes when I'm posting on Instagram, for example, because Michael and I are having a live sale tomorrow. And so I've been posting pictures because I think that that's an important part, is to and don't do it too far in advance. I typically do it the night before, that way it stays fresh. But when you're just typing in and you're sharing photos, and then you have to add all the hashtags, and then
I
you're like,
know. You're just like,
and you can just copy and paste. They have to be changed, because Instagram will be like, you're a bot. You are a
mhm.
bot, and we're not, blah, 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 blah. So you have to be, and then you're like, okay, what? Then you're trying to think of different ones, and you're like, I don't know. So it
But
is.
they have to be popular, but they can't be too popular. And then they can't, and then if they only have like 100 viewers, well, that's no good because then nobody's searching that term. So why bother putting that in? Is that you're just like, oh,
Right. And then sometimes and it's just eh, the secret to that, though, if you don't know this, is that you can link your Instagram feed to your Facebook feed. So everything that I post on Instagram automatically gets posted on my Facebook. So that does help. Like my reels and stuff don't go. I don't think. I
oh,
thought
I
that they
don't know.
didn't. I don't
I
know.
don't do. I can't. I just the Facebook just. Oof.
Yeah, I know. Well, there was times I was like, I'm just going to get rid of Facebook, but I have a that. I mean, we have a lot of viewers that just solely watch on Facebook. So, I mean, I think that if you are covering all of your bases and just making sure that you are, you're addressing your subscribers on Facebook as well. And in fact, if I have time, I'm going to go live on Facebook tomorrow. I'm not
Ooh.
having a sale, so don't, you know. Um,
I'm like, girl. Wait, tomorrow's Tuesday, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's gonna be before our sale. And I feel so bad about this, but so many people have sent me friend mail, and I feel like the most ungrateful person in the world, because I have stacks of boxes that are sitting there waiting for me to open them, but I cannot find the time to open them. So I know that's not a horrible problem to have, but it does kind of stress me out, because I feel like I'm being rude, because and I understand that you know, it's my love language too. I love to send people things, and like I like that. So I get it, but it can be a little overwhelming too, because I feel like I'm so rude because I haven't even opened these yet and they've taken the time to send them to me.
Yeah,
So, but I think I'm going to go on Facebook. So if you're, you know, if you're on Facebook, then come and watch me live
get
tomorrow.
it.
If I even do it. See, and that's the thing. I don't like to schedule it because what if I can't do it? What if I don't have time? I'm really kind of getting, I know that Georgia's going to be late, but I'm hoping that Alex comes. I'm hoping. We talk, but maybe something has come up. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to scroll back up here again. So I guess, Lichelle, if you have a way that if you're on Instagram and you can link that to your Facebook, that does help. It does help. But the thing that I always forget about are these YouTube shorts. The YouTube shorts have really taken off, and a lot of people have been doing them, and they've been, I think George has been doing them. And any time in the social media, if they introduce a new thing, they really like you to use it. So, but with YouTube, it's different because when you're filming a YouTube video, you know, I film everything on my phone.
Same.
So it's in landscape, but then for the
Shorts.
shorts, they want you to film it just like you would on Instagram. So just keeping that all in my brain sometimes can be a little.
I just don't. And you know what? That would be a good thing to kind of test out. The shorts would be a great way in which, again, now that we're talking about it out loud, like this
Yeah.
is how Michael's brain, because I'll be like, Misty, I'm just going to talk at you and this will help me figure it out in my head. But saying it out loud,
Yeah.
utilizing a different format within the YouTube platform, that might be actually a really interesting way to kind of play around
I think
and
so too.
with the shorts, because then it's not such a
Right.
time commitment. Yeah.
And I don't think that you have to overthink it either. I mean, I think sometimes if you think, okay, again, talking about keeping up with the Joneses, everybody else's shorts are all like edited to perfection. They've got this great music and it's like all these quick changes and stuff. I think that just keeping it organic and just don't overthinking it. I know that when I don't ever plan. I'm just like, I turn the camera on and whatever comes out of my mouth comes out of my mouth, which isn't always a good thing. But
Same.
yeah, but it is what it is. Matthew, honestly, I don't understand why people like my vlogs. They do, and I appreciate that. I am the most boring person. Like I was telling Michael earlier, I was showing him that because Mark redid our closet, and I'm like, I'm gonna show this on my vlog. Who cares? Like, who cares? But I don't know. When I do that when I do my vlogs, it's very much I don't know what I'm going to do. It whatever happens happens. Oops. Okay. Oh my gosh, why is this popping up? Okay. I gotta scroll back up. This isn't the best thing. Okay, there we go. But Matthew, I don't know that I could do because honestly, I can only do a vlog a week because that's the most as exciting as it gets. All right.
Yeah, that's a big commitment, daily vlogging.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So sometimes many have loved big sellers' content and what they did that worked in the very beginning. They changed and tried this and that and went downhill. Yeah, I think so too. I think you have to be very careful. I think you're right. You have to be very careful of veering too
Yeah.
off course.
Yeah.
Veering too off
Well,
course.
I'm not. That's the thing. We're gonna stay on the same highway, but we're just gonna change lanes with a signal, might I add. We're not gonna be veering all over.
Yeah.
We ain't gonna throw the map out the window or the GPS out the
No.
window and be getting off random exit because that looks like that's a good one. Let's try. We're not gonna do all that mess.
Right.
We're not gonna do that mess. No, 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 no.
No, it's still going to be, and he's told me, I'm not going to say what he's thinking about
Yeah.
because I'll leave that to him, but it is I think you guys are going to like it. I think you're going to like it. I think you really will.
And-
Yeah, Jamie starts her daily vlogging tomorrow.
Ooh,
No, but see,
no.
Jamie, you're traveling though. If you're traveling, that's different. If this is just me slipping around in my slippers, getting ready for work, nobody wants to see that. but traveling,
I mean, there's people out there for everything, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
But I think that's the big thing though too is that when your channel has been established as one thing and you're like
yeah,
I'm like and as a human being you're just like for whatever reason and it happens a lot people are just like I'm done with this like I want to
yeah,
move on and then they try to take their channel and move on with it and their audience is like I didn't sign up for this
yeah,
and they're like deuce it, you know what I mean and then they're like okay so nobody's interested in it and then it's too late to go back
right, right.
you know that's that swerving and getting off random exits.
Yeah, and that can be I bet, but sometimes that might be okay, but you might just have to realize that you may have to like, you may be starting, I don't want to say starting over again, but kind of starting over again in some
Yeah.
aspects. All right. Let's see
Can you
here.
guys hear that air conditioning unit? Can you
No.
hear it? Okay.
Mm-mm. So Cheryl Shiny Squirrel, I want to get my channel going, but I'm worried I'll get depressed if I don't grow fast enough. You will. I mean, I don't say you're going to get depressed, but you're going to get frustrated. You'll get
But
frustrated, but you
well,
have to keep at it.
I think that actually brings up a really interesting topic though, Cheryl, is like why would you get depressed that you don't get a following? Do you know what I'm saying? And this is the reason that I ask you is again, before you and I would say this to anybody, before you decide that you want to, and I think especially YouTube
Yeah.
because it's so personal because you are putting your physical self out there. But
Yeah.
really sit down and ask yourself, what is it that why am I trying to do this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And ask yourself that because if it's about, well, I want to get followers and I want to get noticed, and I would say it's probably not a good thing to do. If that's the intention behind it, and I'm not going to say that there's anything wrong with that. Who am I? You
Yeah.
know, my concern though is when I hear statements like that saying, well, I would be upset or it would frustrate me. And then that can often lead to like resentments, sometimes and self doubt. So, you know, really sit within yourself and question, do I want to do this because I think it would be fun and I just want to, you know, have a hobby and we'll see how it goes. And I say try it out and see. It never hurts to try something new, but
Right.
really be like, I don't know. I'm not the kind of person that takes rejection well. I'm not the kind of person that takes criticism well. I really like to be noticed. I like to be the center of attention. And if those are your motivating factors, I mean, there's plenty of them out there right now. I can tell you.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing though too. I want to say though too is, we all had those first videos and we all started somewhere and, and you grow. I mean, you'll grow, you'll grow. You'll have some like you're like where you don't grow and you're just like kind of floating around here in like stagnant land. And then, YouTube will, say, "Oh, yeah, okay, we'll go ahead and we'll throw her around a little bit more." And you still just you're gonna get comments, oh, I don't like you anymore, you've changed, or oh, you're not like what you used to be. Oh, well, you've got such a different attitude. You're gonna get people. The more you grow, the more people are not going to like you for whatever reason. That's something that as a people pleaser like me, like it is hard when you feel like you have upset somebody or made somebody mad, or it is hard because you want everybody to like you. You don't want anybody to be mad. You want everybody to be happy, but you're not going to make everybody happy, and not everybody is going to like you.
No.
And but the people that do like you are the people that will matter. There's George, I think. Well, I just see his little connecting thing, but I don't see his face. So I'll wait till I see his face before I bring him on. And Deb, the difference
The
between a
camera
bot,
might be off.
George, is your camera off? I just see like a little cord thing. It looks like he like has to plug it in. Is that what that looks like, Michael?
The USB, yeah.
Yeah, little cord thing. Deb, the difference between a bot and a troll. Well, a bot is like a robot. It's not a real person. A
Right.
troll is a real person.
It's
that are
like
like,
click here to win $1,000. Click
right,
here to
or
watch
like
sexy girls, hot guys.
but I don't have that turned on, Michael. So you've summoned them.
Bring the sexy on.
Yeah,
I mean, we're
you
here.
say the
We're
word,
all
and
here.
the sex bots will come. They have been summoned.
There he
So
is. Oh, try it. Just hit it. Do it. Hit the button. Is it
no,
working?
that's not George.
Test check 1 2.
I hear
Test
him.
check 1 2.
George,
Test
we
check
hear
1
you.
2. Test check 1 2.
Still checking.
We're like in the mind of George. Oh, let's all learn. We can learn all kinds of stuff if we're in George's mind.
Test check 1 2.
I'm
Oh,
not
there.
gonna embarrass him.
Xeno's like, I
George.
can't help him. I can't help him this time. He's on his own.
Wait, I saw Zeno. George
Xeno's
should
here.
be entering soon. Can't help him with Zeno, because he's in Florida, and Zeno, you're not in Florida. Zeno's like, come on, George.
You can do it.
You can do it. You can do it. Okay. Check. We hear you. Oh my gosh, you guys cracked me up. All right, let me scroll
George?
back up here again.
George?
Hey, look at CL saying you're bringing sexy back tonight, Michael.
I love my instant tan. It's a little orange. I'm not gonna lie. I just moved back.
And you know the difference between a bot and a troll. That's why, like during the live sales, you heard us say,
to
I'm
make
gonna try
sure
it out.
that it's on the face.
Okay. Zeno's trying to help George right now. That was Zeno's voice. During the live sales, when we say, we want you to be subscribed to our channel, or we ask that you are subscribed to our channel if you want to participate in the sale or in the live chat, I don't have that turned on right now. I typically will just do it in the sale. I don't know. I was just kind of like, do I want to turn it on here? Because a lot of new people might be coming in. And so I don't know. But the reason why we've been doing that, and it has helped eliminate some of the unwantables. No, that's not the word I'm looking for. The riffraff, as far as the bots and the trolls go. It does help with it. Oh, there he is.
Now you're muted though, George. You're muted. You're muted.
Okay. There we go.
George is in the house.
Yay, it's nice to see you. How are you?
We are great. I'm worried. I did tell Alex it was going to be 8 Eastern, so maybe he'll pop on at 9. And
oh dear, yes, that is entirely possible. Yes, because he's on Mountain Time, I guess.
Yeah, so he'll be like, "We'll all be done." And he'll be like, "Wait, what happened?"
Well, we'll have fun in the meantime. What have you been talking about?
We'll have fun in the meantime. So, George,
all the tea, George. All the tea.
Oh, I missed it.
So George you're in Florida still, right? He's at the Nurse Flipper.
Yes,
event.
we just finished her eBay camp yesterday evening, and we all left this morning, and it was really great fun. And I hope I get to do it again. It was great. I learned some things, that's for sure. She is a really good keyworder, and she taught me some stuff. I'm all like, oh, I've got to put circa dates because I'm an appraiser and that's what we do. And she's like, no, they just want to see vintage. They can look the date up in your listing. I'm like, oh, that was a good clue.
Yeah. She's a wealth of knowledge. Absolutely, Kat is. If you're an eBay seller, make sure that you are following the Nurse Flipper. She has lives every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And she's fantastic. She's really, really good at what she does. And George has been in Florida. George has had a couple viral videos. One of them, I know, is so exciting. I'm so excited. I had seen that and I was like, oh, so I sent him a message, but it was so great. Congratulations, George.
Thank you. It's really cool. I just am thrilled because I've got a bunch of new subscribers now, and I just love to, it's funny. It's almost evangelical. I just want to talk about this stuff with as many people as possible.
You know what? It is that way.
Spreading the word, folks. Spreading the word.
Spreading the word. Spreading the word. It can very well much be that way. When you're so passionate about things, you like to talk about them, and And I think that, George is just, and he is an internal inherent teacher anyway. I think that he likes to, you like to teach people about things that maybe they didn't know about. And then they hear George say it and they're like, well, I'll be darned, I did not know that. You learn something new every day from George.
Well, I just figure that if people know more about the stuff that they already like, then they'll develop a deeper appreciation for it and maybe want other pieces of it and maybe be able to explain to other people. Because, a lot of times someone comes into your house, if you're a collector, and they look at something and they're like, oh, what's that thing? And if you're like, oh yeah, it's pretty, it's cute, well, that's great. But if you're like, oh, I really love it, and did you know, blah, 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 maybe their eyes glaze over. But on the other hand, maybe they're like, oh, now I understand why you like this stuff. It's not just stuff, it's got some deeper meaning to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
History.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It is the history. It definitely is. Definitely is. All right. I'm scrolling back. Well, let me just say, George is so great to have you on Vintage Rescue Squad. It's always
Thank you.
Great to do anything that's involved with George. He's one of my favorite people in this entire planet.
Aw.
Love George. Okay.
I like it too, George.
Thank you. The feeling is mutual, all of you. This is a really happy little group of people, and I just really enjoy, actually not a very little group of people. You guys have a pretty big following here, so that's fun too.
It is. Monday nights are always great because I feel like, we're so used to just when we go live, we're so used to be, like, here's this, and we're going to start it at $15. And, so it's just like a relaxing, we can just like sit down and we're all just sitting in the living room together and we're all just chatting. We're chatting about vintage. We're chatting about reselling. We're chatting about content. We're chatting about burnout. We were talking a little, I think there.
Hey.
You were giving me a heart attack, Alex.
I gave myself a heart attack. I apologize. I was delayed at the store. We're getting ready for a big auction sale, and the auction house was running way late. So I just got home now. I'm
so jealous of you right now in this because I so badly want, because I still have in my brick and mortar, it's like George has been there. It's full. And I want it to go away. All the stuff that I'm not
passionate about.
Yeah. I'm not passionate about. It's like maybe things, well, a lot of it has been things that I've had for 40 years, and it's just, I'm done with it. But I have a dad who will not allow me to have an auction. So at least not yet. I'm trying to convince him.
That's tricky.
I know.
So Alex, how are you deciding what to keep? Because I know that your whole thing is it's time to move on to another chapter and not be as heavy in merchandise. But I know you're still wanting to be involved. And I know I watched you when you went to see the guys who had the great cars. And I love the green one in the background. How do you decide what level of stock to keep and how that part of that business is going, what part is staying with you and what goes? Because that's a big decision, especially because you've got a lot of really good quality merchandise.
Yeah.
Well, first off, it's nice to meet everybody for those I haven't met before too.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yes. A pleasure to chat with everybody. And again, my apologies. Of course, being Canadian, I have to apologize at least one more time. I hate being late, but I just walked in the door.
Don't worry about
question. I am the percentage of stuff I want to keep is basically like less than 1%.
Yeah.
Like the only things I'm hanging back are things that I don't think I'd find the right buyer at that sale. Like I have a those Teotihuacan ancient masks carved of jade. Like those came from a museum. They're a pretty specialty piece, and putting that through this sale, this is more, I think there'll be more like antiques and collectibles and toys and comics and stuff like that. Throwing in like a 2,000-year-old mask, it'd be kind of random. So there's a few things like that where I think that I could probably just showcase those on Instagram or showcase them on my channel and sell them separate.
Yeah.
But quite honestly, 99% of my stock is going. I have no interest in shipping stuff. I have no interest in boxing things up and packing it up. That's why I choose to deal with auction houses, because for the commission that they take, they earn it in my mind. Where they deal with the customers, they deal with the shipping. And as you all know, doing this, your time is really valuable. And when you're exhausted from a day of, not just creating this content, but, buying and selling stuff, you really don't feel like going to the post office and sending stuff off. Oh, my wife is on.
Yeah,
hey, I know her. I know her.
I know. I love Melissa. I watch Melissa's videos too.
I know her. Yeah. So no, I really don't want. Mentally, I just need to get a clean slate, honestly.
Yeah.
And truth be told, I'm sure as all of you know, buying and selling, that trends have been shifting even lately, where stuff that was selling for really great dollars 4 or 5 years ago is even starting to kind of wane, and certain other things are picking up. So I think if I start with a clean slate, I'll be able to be much more selective with what I do decide to buy and sell. And frankly, that was kind of my decision to shut down the shop, is that it was way too much stuff. I'm sort of a minimalist. I mean, like, for antiques in my house, I have a boat over there and a couple of guitars, and that's like, I don't have a whole lot of stuff. I'm not interested in having a bunch of stuff around the house.
Yeah, I know. My husband and I were watching one of your videos, and you were talking about that, and you said, I don't like to have a lot of clutter, and I was like, I don't either. And my husband was like, really? I was like, well, I mean, I like things clean, but I love my little collections. But there are times though, like you've had your red line collection that you had, and you sold it. You sold it because you wanted to put this money into your home. And I think that is a true testament as well, is that you feel like you don't have to hold on to everything. You hold on to it for a while, and it has a season.
Last time I was on the show with you, I was sitting in the old Rolls Royce that I'd fixed up, if you recall. That car is gone. Blood, sweat, and tears went into it. I guess I'm more about the journey, if that makes sense.
Completely makes sense.
I love finding things. And for me, the selling is kind of like, it's a necessity, but it's not the fun part. As you probably all agree, I'm sure, the fun part is going to somebody's basement and pulling out a box and discovering something that is good, that nobody else but you, in that moment knows is worth anything. The discovery is so much fun. And for me, renovating things like old houses and cars is fun. But I once you have the thing renovated, or once you have your collection put together, I'm like, I can go. I don't need it. And plus, things are replaceable.
They are. Well, and the thing of it is, like I've said to people, if someone came to my house and they said, oh, I really like that picture, I will sell it to them. Like, you can buy it. Like, I have all these things that I love, but honestly, if someone says, oh, I want all your Ruthie Newton squeakers, I may be like, okay, because we're going out and we're finding these things often. And so I'll find it again. If I want it, I'll find it again.
Okay. So you're going to box up that Liberace cutout for me?
No, that will never be sold.
Full stop, except for Liberace.
Yes. All my Liberace albums and my Liberace cutout I won't say he'll be buried with me, but that would be silly. He wouldn't fit in there with me. They have to fold him in half.
That'd be terrifying for future Tomb Raiders.
He would be, Liberace, you look as good as the day.
He was a lot slimmer than we thought he was.
Well, one thing though too that I wanted to touch on a little bit, and George and I have talked a little bit about this too, is having the brick and mortar. And I know that Alex, a lot of people were like, but Alex, you put all this money and time into doing this building, and now you're just going to sell it. You're just going to let it go. And yes, you because things change and priorities change and life sometimes changes, and you have every right to do that. And I know that's a shock to people because people have gone on this journey with you. But George and I were talking about how being kind of tied down to a building can be suffocating. It can be very suffocating. It can prevent you from doing the other things that you started doing this journey to begin with.
Well, I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I think I got to a spot. Honestly, I got to a spot at the shop where people were bringing in, when I first opened, people bring in boxes of like old posters and whatever, and I'd be like, I don't really want it, but I'll buy it. I mean, it'll be stuff I can put on the shelf. And I would ultimately end up taking most of that stuff right to an auction, you know, within a month or so anyway, because I just didn't need it or want it. And then I was getting so fussy that there wasn't really anything coming in the store that excited me, because when you've been in this business, you've consumed everything on earth, you know, and going through people's houses and dealing with estates, and you constantly are just that at the tail end of somebody's life, and you're just dealing with, you know, what it's like to have to deal with somebody's excess. And I thought, you know, not that anything's gonna happen to me, but if I had to leave everything in my store for Melissa to deal with and the kids to deal with, that's that's a big burden. And I felt like this weight in my backpack of having this burden of just too much stuff. And as I looked around the store, I realized that yes, there were some things that were selling in that, and some people liked the things in the store, but for me, like 1% of it excited me. And so I you know, a lot of people were saying, I can't believe you did. The biggest thing I will miss about the store isn't actually the antiques or the fact we put the building up. I'm going to miss the children that come through that go to school down the street and they come in for candy, and, you know, they'd put money in and get a fortune from Zoltar. Like, being part of that neighborhood is what I'm going to miss the most, but not the stuff.
Right. Yeah. And I think that it's sort of kind of a monumentous thing, because, you know, like your house being ready and the closing of your shop is kind of within what, weeks, a couple weeks of one another.
The same day. The possession date on the store and the possession date on my house are the same day.
See, so it's going to be very cathartic, because it's like a fresh transition.
I guess there's going to be a whole lot of stress before I get to the cathartic part.
Well, yeah, but you'll have that beautiful fireplace to sit in front of. And, you know,
I just, you know, I really hope that my viewers stay down to see what I do have planned, because what I want to do this summer is I'm probably just going to do like some videos of landscaping and going on the occasional pick and things. And then I want to find some kind of crazy old, like, rundown artist house, you know, like something like, if I could find a dumpy Frank Lloyd Wright kind of thing and renovate it, you know, like I want to do a property and then really try and just put a lot of character and architecture. So I have plans, but I'm not going to rush into that. It has to be the right property at the right price. So we'll see.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah, and you'll find a footing in things. I have to say, for me, what reinvigorated me about the business was starting the YouTube channel. I really was, truthfully, I was kind of getting burned out. I'd done this for a long time. I still really enjoyed the new finds, but like you said, when you've done it a long time, you've kind of seen a lot of stuff. So it takes something really out there to really say, wow, okay, that's something new and fresh. But being able to explain to other people what's interesting and fun about this has made it new and fresh again, because I get to see it through their eyes. And the other thing I've noticed is it's more a North American thing. Collectors in other parts of the world tend to buy collections and keep them. But in the US and Canada, a lot of people amass collections, have fun with it, do it for 5 or 10 years, sell off the collection, and then start collecting something else. It seems like there's something about, you know, I guess maybe we're all explorers. Our ancestors came here from somewhere. I mean, not all of them.
Hunting.
One of my ancestors was Native American, but the rest of them invaded from somewhere else. And I think it's just in our blood to try to switch it up.
Right. Yeah, it is interesting though. I mean, you know, for me, like in terms of doing the live sales, and I love doing the live sales. And Alex, I love the shipping. I know I get reamed for it all the time.
I'm glad that you do.
It's like my day. Thursdays are my shipping days, because I have a sale on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I ship everything on most time on Thursday. And I'm there by myself. I turn on some records, I zone out, and I just get it done. And it's like, for a person with adult ADHD, it's a completion. It's like, that's my little gold star of the day. I've completed my task. So it's a fulfilling thing for me, just for that aspect of it. But I know Zeno said, ask George about USPS shipping. No, Zeno, I don't want George to explode.
Items today, 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Very bad.
That's very bad.
Yes.
But that's kind of why, like, I want to do it, because if I felt like if I hired somebody else to do it, then I would worry about it. But anyway, I like doing the live sales because I like to see what trends are happening. Like, what are people buying? And it does change so dramatically, because, and Michael can contest to this too, or attest to this. You know, we were selling things last month that aren't really selling that well this month, you know, and it just changes that quickly in what people are looking for. It's fascinating to me.
And the
really
markets
is.
are so different too. It's regional. You
Yeah,
know,
it totally
where
is.
I am, there's a city 3 hours from here where if you have saddles and coal oil lanterns, they're still selling that stuff. But here, that would just be dead.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a
Oh,
whole other land
interesting.
just 3 hours away.
Oh, that is interesting. So Calgary is still really into the Western. I guess I just assumed that Edmonton and Calgary would be more similar in that way.
No, they have the Stampede, and people walk around with cowboy hats and big belt buckles and stuff. So there are still actual cowboys walking around like they just came off a ranch or something. And so I think they're decorating their houses more in that rustic kind of vibe. Where here, there's a lot of collectors that are building like man caves, you know, like the oil and gas signs, and people will spend $5,000 on an oil can. But, you know, you try and talk them into like this historic document signed by George Washington, and they're like, nah.
Isn't that
They
crazy?
could care less. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I have a friend who just found a Pennsylvania oil sign, and he's been doing antique advertising for 45 years. And he showed it to Hake's auction, which is one of the big ones in advertising. And Hake was like, we've never seen that particular one before. He paid $250 or $300 in an antique mall. And I wouldn't have known to pay that for it. And they're like, oh yeah, 5,000 to 10,000 minimum, because no one's ever seen it before. So yeah. And you're right. You can have some wonderful signed document by somebody very important, and they're like, yeah, well, but it doesn't look cool on my wall.
Exactly.
Right. Well, it all depends on who that person, I mean, it all depends on who that person is that's going to walk into the door, or that's going to, you know, there's just different strokes for different folks.
I think what George just said, I think, is a really interesting topic, because because I am a firm believer in that, but I think that's kind of, and I think this is jarring for a lot of people that very much do love vintage. And I think even more jarring for people that maybe like antiques or historical artifacts I really do see trends shifting from, I hate to say it, but things that are apprised maybe of artistic value or historical importance. And if it doesn't look cool, then people don't want anything to do with it. It's about the aesthetic. It's all about the aesthetic. How does it look? How does it look? If it doesn't look right, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if George Washington signed it. If it doesn't look good in my background, if it doesn't look good hanging on my wall, if it's not pretty enough to put on my couch, I don't value it.
I think
We're
it's
an
because
Instagram society.
Yep.
that's exactly what I
Social
was
media,
getting ready
yeah.
to say. They want to post it. They want to take a picture of their display and post it, and that's what they want. I mean, that's what we want. I do it. I mean,
Well, and you mentioned ADD, Misty, and I think if anything, everybody is becoming more that way, because everything is about flip, next picture, next picture, next picture, next picture. And wow, you know, that's a lot of volume to keep up with. I think that's how people like you and me and Alex and eventually Michael, I'm sorry to say, end up with huge death piles.
No, I will not.
he won't,
Not.
George.
I will not. I will not. I will not.
He won't. We've talked about it, and he's like, no.
There is no, but this is I think this is my big thing though about it too, is because I have been because I guess you could say that while I do try to put full-time effort into it, I am part-time reselling in comparison to the three of you. At the end of the day, you know, but I think though, as it becomes more and more and more as a business, you inevitably are acquiring more and more. And as one person, how does one person get through all of that? But I think it is good to have items that are in reserve, inclement weather, businesses close, trends change. You always want to have a cachet of items, but a death pile, no way, Jose.
Well, the kind of the problem with getting too many things is when you are filming your content. you know, I'm going out and I'm shopping every week and I'm filming myself shopping, and I don't have to buy the things that I'm filming, but it does make it, people do like to see I'm going shopping, I'm purchasing. They want to see the whole thing. Like I'm buying it, I'm purchasing it, and I'm selling it. And it's kind of it can help make you get a lot of things. Ideally, you know, I want to buy everything for that week and sell everything that week. I mean, that to me, that would be an ideal thing. I mean, I have a 2,500 square foot storefront that I do not need. I do not need that much space. I have, but we own the building outright. It's a place for me to work, and I don't have to do it here. So, I mean, it's suiting its purpose, but it's too much. It's too big. It's too much of a space. I don't need that much of a space.
Are you open for customers at your store?
No.
It's just more or less just your personal.
The front of the store is kind of loosely set up because I did have a pop-up in the last fall. But it isn't like, I would not want people coming in there looking at the way that it looks like right now, because I'm particular. But they
might like it that way though.
I know, but I'd be like,
none of us need it to be tidy. Why should they?
So, but you know, my dad's like, I'm gonna sell this stuff. You know, I got some guys I'm gonna bring over, because my dad very much, he hangs out at the flea markets, and I'm like, bring your flea market guys here, and you know, show them around, but they just can't go past here because that's my stuff. They just can't go past this little line but no, I don't know. I just don't have any desire to open it up. In fact, sometimes people will be looking in the windows, and Michael knows this, and I'm like, go away.
She'll be like, there's someone at the window.
But I don't know. I don't want to do it. It's like I did it and I don't want to do it. I'm a people person. I love being around people, but it didn't do anything for me. And it was so much work. And I was still teaching at that point too. And so doing it, you know, working my job all week and then coming and staying at the shop all weekend, it was a lot. And dealing with the displays, and then the holidays, decorating for the holidays, then taking it all down. Then, it was a lot. I didn't.
Well, and I know when I watched the video, Alex, where you made the announcement, and I absolutely related when you talked about the people in my life are not getting enough of me because I'm completely consumed with this. And I absolutely am still suffering from that. And it's very, very difficult to get out of once you're in it. I mean, you really did it right. You ripped the Band-Aid off and just said, look, I'm doing this now.
Yeah. I mean,
kind of unwind storage units and storage houses in 3 different states. And I'm like, how did I get this way?
Yeah, I guess like Michael was saying, he doesn't want to have a death pile. I wouldn't say that I ever really had one. I would just, if I acquired extra things, I would instantly auction them off. And that's where, for me, it's been helpful to have a partner like an auction house that ships globally, where I can just, whoop, you know, sometimes I do these house clear outs and I take everything directly there. It doesn't even come to the store.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's great that you have that connection of someone that you can work with like that. I think that's, now, have you had to go through like several until you found the right one?
Yes. I went through, there's kind of like 2 auction houses that deal in antiques, I guess 3 now, but I took stuff to the one that was supposed to be the fancy one. And I was trying to explain to them what stuff was. Like I had, I don't know, like a, 1950s Mortimer Snurd and stuff. And I was like, hey, so this should be separate. And that's Mortimer Snurd. And he's like, he didn't put his finger on my lips and go, shush, 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 but it was just about like that. He's like, listen, we're professionals. We know what we're doing. And then when I saw the auction go up, it was shelf lot of collectibles. And he put all the stuff that should have been individually lotted up and went for like $20. I'm like,
Yep.
No.
I had the killer for me was I had an Oak Partners desk, really like something like a Dick Tracy kind of desk, oak double-sided desk with the drawers, 2 nice, what are they called? They're like caboose chairs. Anyway, anyway, my mind's going blank, but 2 nice chairs with it. It went for like $15, and it was appraised, I think, at $4,000 from the person I got it from. So I'm like, I am never, ever dealing with this auction house ever again. And they were just so rude and condescending and stuff. And I think, you know, to think of all the money that I've brought the auction house that I went with,
Right.
I use Castor is the one locally that I go through, just because they were willing to at least listen and try and put things individually. And they're like, okay, if you think that should go up separate, sure, let's try it. At least they were open to it, right?
Yeah.
That other auction house lost a really good customer over the years just because of their, I guess, just the way their attitude. And I won't name names, but you know,
no.
it's good. It is good to have a partner like that. That's what I was doing. When I was supposed to be here with you guys, they were putting like lot numbers around my store. Like it's so funny when you're shutting down your store, but like my business is staying open. Like I'm just
Right.
going to be like you guys. I just won't have a
Yeah.
storefront. So
Yeah.
people are like, "Whoa, if you're going broke, everything should be half price." I'm like, "Well, I'm not going
No.
broke. I am just closing my storefront and selling the building. There's a difference." And so one guy got all huffy with me because everything wasn't half price or like 80% off, and he just stormed off. And I was like, "Well, you could go to the auction. Maybe you will get it for 50% off. I don't know."
Well, and
Exactly.
that's very much things that we deal with on, you know, doing our sales as well. I don't know where that came from. I'm
moved
down
south.
near Kentucky, but not that far down into Kentucky. But
you just
I
crossed
mean,
the border for a second there.
yeah, just jumped over the river there for a minute. You know, sometimes we deal with that too. I mean, we get a lot of, I know Michael and I both get a lot of negative things sometimes because, you know, we run our sales in auction format. I mean, we may start something at like $15. You know, we're starting it at a low enough affordable price, and then it just gets built up, and it may sell, you know, for $50, $60, and you know the market is deciding what that item is going to go for. But then, you know, people will leave comments, "I can't afford to come to your live sales anymore," and things just get bid up too high, and I don't, and
that's what they're worth.
Right, but
That's
see,
how you find the value.
Yeah.
but it's very much a, you know, that goes back to the people pleaser thing. You're like, well, I'm sorry, you know, you kind of, but then you can be like, no, I'm not sorry for that because I know what I'm paying for it. I don't shop at thrift stores. I mean,
it doesn't matter, Misty. That one individual thing, it makes no difference whether they buy it or sell it. You have created a market value for an item, and you've taught thousands of people what that market value is. So if they go out to a thrift store or whatever themselves, it doesn't matter they didn't win it. They might find one at a yard sale now, and thanks to you, they know what it's worth. That's more valuable than them buying it for $10 less.
Well, and I think that's some of the reasons why I do my previews. Like I'll post pictures and say what the things are, so people can kind of do their research ahead of time, and they can see, you know, you can get it from me, and I'm happy to send it to you. But it's not the only. We're not dealing with the only thing of this item out in the world. There are many others of this item that are out in the world. But I think that it's where I had started in my live sales. You know, I was selling things for, you know, probably way too cheap, you know, when I was trying to build my brand. And then things evolved. And I mean, I don't shop at thrift stores. I buy all of my
She buys it all at
merchandise
Antique.
from Antique Nomad.
No,
You
there
know,
we go.
I'm not paying, you know, I'm not paying a quarter or 50 cents for things anymore. So my prices have to be higher than what they once were.
Well, right. And I mean, I think part of it too is, you know, our audience is starting to learn more about different phases of the business. I've had the opposite comment. I do some state sales where I conduct them, and I've had comments. I had one person say, and she's great, she's a regular viewer, and I took it in the spirit it was intended, but she said, "I wouldn't want you to do my sale because your prices are so cheap. I mean, I can't believe that's all you got." And it's like, well, I'm trying to explain, it's an estate sale. I have 3 days to sell the entire contents of a house.
Right.
3 days. Not, oh, gee, I can carry it over and maybe I'll do a sale in 2 weeks and put some more stuff up. I have 3 days to sell someone's entire lifetime of possessions. And that's a different pricing level than retail. So
yeah, it's wholesale. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, you know, it's just knowing what the different parts of the market are. And that's just experience. And we can't expect all the people who are discovering this and loving it and getting turned on to it to have our years of experience and know that. It's just part of the education that there's different levels of the market. Do you think, Alex, that the with the auction and the lotting of things. Are you going to have a multi-day auction?
Yeah, it's going to be 2 days for sure, and we're seeing where we're at. But I had forgotten how many smalls I had.
Wow.
You know, and even when you break things out into a lot of 5 assorted, you know, antique fountain pens or something like that, I'm like, man, there's like 100 pens here. So you start going through the lots, and before you know it, you're at like 3,000 or 4,000 lots, and they're like, this is a lot more than what, you know, 2 days can even hold. So we're still figuring that out right now.
Good.
But I can't tell you how thrilled I am and how freeing it feels to just know that I'm going to walk away. This reminds me of like when I was doing antique shows and I'd go and set up, a younger version of myself would go and set up at a table. But I remember maybe 10, 15 years ago, I did an antique show and I sold everything on my table, including the table that I brought. And I was just like, I phoned my wife and I'm like, guess what? I sold everything, including the table. And I was so happy. I just drove back with nothing. That's how I'm approaching my store right now, is that I was selling everything, showcases, the stock, the whole store. I was going to walk away with nothing.
Well, I think that that's a testament to you being a born salesman. You know?
Yeah. Well, and I really don't feel personal attachment to things. I tell you, it's shifted a lot. And I don't know if it's, you know, everybody's had loss in their life, their parents and things like that. But for me, my dad was a bit of a collector. When he passed, he left 20,000 records to my mom, who didn't want anything to do with it. And so I had to help her do that. It took years to get rid of it all. But for me, I'm more interested right now in this stage of my life in experiences and creating, you know, creating a beautiful environment for my family, maybe renovating and fixing things and then getting rid of them. That excites me more, I think, than owning a bunch of stuff. So I'll still probably, I'll probably build my Redline Hot Wheel collection back up again over time. But that takes up like, you know, a little bit of space.
My husband he restores red lines. So that's his kind of his hobby. I mean, he restores them and he keeps them and
super fun. Does he have an airbrush and everything too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He buys the decals and he's very, he's an engineer, works for the Navy. And so it keeps him very, very busy. But occasionally when I'm working at the shop on a Saturday, just, you know, organizing and stuff, and he'll be back there working on his cars and stuff. But now that it's lawn mowing season, he probably won't be at the shop with me on Saturdays much anymore.
Poor guy. I know what it's like though. It's super fun to fix up stuff like that.
He loves it.
Yeah, I enjoy it quite a bit. I don't foresee turning my channel into a full on just like, look, I'm restoring, because there are people who do a much better job than I do with that. But it is fun to do for sure.
Yeah. It's a nice hobby to do. And that's the thing. It's a nice hobby to do. Something that's nice to do that you don't have to worry about turning a buck for it. You know what I mean? It's a hobby. You do it in your leisure because you enjoy doing it. And a lot of the times I don't have time to do things in my leisure. The things that I do in my leisure is work because I love work.
Yeah, I can't even remember the last time I picked up and like played a song or played the guitar.
No, I bought books.
So I'm curious though, and I guess George, I'm going to put you on the spot, but by doing that, Alex, it sounds like so far as, and I don't know that you've discussed this per se, I think that you've alluded to it in ways, but so far as your content, it sounds like you have these personal passions, and those passions are things that you really want to share with people, and those are things that they are familiar with but haven't necessarily been at the forefront. Is that
you know, most of the subscribers that I picked up on my channel weren't there necessarily because I was opening a box of antiques. They're there because I was discovering a human being that had been lost for a long time amongst their things, or renovating their property, or telling a story of someone who lived and enjoyed their life. And so those are all things I'm still very much passionate about. And yes, I'll probably still go out and buy antiques and do that end of the business. But a lot of my subscribers were there originally because of either home renovation or like hoarder house renovation and stuff. So for them, the content they were there for originally is probably more the content I'm going to be doing, you know, in that sense.
So the pottery house. Yep.
Yeah.
The pottery. That's what got me on your channel.
Oh,
yeah. Well, that almost got me physically. Like I was sick for months after that.
Yeah.
You know, I was coughing. I'm glad that COVID wasn't around. because I was coughing. People would have just like been like the plague around me, just keeping their distance. But
well, and then just the all the other drama that went on with the house, with the renters and all that. So I mean, that was that was a long haul for you. But I would, and I like the way that you did that though, because you weren't just going in there just like ripping this place apart. You were respecting her, and you were bringing her forgotten story back into the forefront again.
I was going to show you
a very respectful thing to do.
My table is messy right now, but I actually have Mary Borgstrom's pottery cart. Josh turned into a table for us, so that's what we actually use. Yeah, as a table.
I was going to ask if you kept a souvenir. This is going to sound weird, but every estate sale I've ever done, and it might be something as stupid as the tape dispenser, but I keep one tiny little thing from each one just as a memory, whether they were good, bad, or in between. And
I didn't know that about you.
I haven't said this before. It's just like one little connection to that person.
Oh, I love that.
I can look at
it. Good thing you're not a mortician. I'll never miss that finger.
Yeah. You'd have a jar of gold teeth.
That's dark.
Well, no, I sell the gold teeth, Michael.
Yeah, the gold teeth are worth money.
No, I don't really keep a whole lot. Like, for me, the thing that I kept was, the videos are going to be there to remember. The relationships that I had with Mary's daughter and her son-in-law, getting to know Betty Joan and her circle of friends. Those are the things that I keep with me. And, it was just such a gift to find the things that I found that helped pave a path for my family to have really a truly unbelievable future that I would never have expected. And, for that, I'm forever grateful. Heck, we wrote a book about Mary.
You honestly, in my opinion, you were the right person to come in and do that story. Like, you were the right person to come in and find that house. Because when you first went out there, you weren't planning on buying the whole thing.
Mary's place?
Yeah, you were going just kind of look through some stuff. And
I went out there with my Ghostbuster ambulance. And they had told me, I'm sure I've rehashed this story a few times, and forgive me if I'm doing it again, but
no, it's fine.
They were actually customers of my old, because I had another store years ago before this. Melissa and I owned a toys shop and collectible shop at West Edmonton Mall, which is really big. It's like Mall of America. It's a big shopping mall. And they were regular customers of ours. And so just by happenstance, they saw the story about where I helped Adam with the Bambi cell and got him off the streets, and he's no longer homeless and stuff. So they said, we want to go check out the store, see who this guy is. When they walked in and they saw it was me, they went, Alex, buddy, we didn't know that was you. And I went, yeah. And so they looked around, and, they said, well, if you like old junk, because they're not really antique collectors, right? But they're like, if you like old junk, you should come out to Mom's place. Boy, we're just going to burn that place down. It's all garbage.
Oh, wow.
And truthfully, what I said was, she was 101 at the time, or closing in on 102. And I said, even garbage from a 102-year-old lady could be interesting, because it could be old coffee cans or tea tins, or you never know, right?
Yeah, that's my language, is the advertisement pieces. That's my...
Yeah, so I was going out there with full expectation that I might be trying to find something that they told me was a house full of garbage, and that nothing was good, and the house should be knocked down and torn down, and they were going to donate it to the fire department to do a controlled burn on to practice burning a house down. And I said, before you do that, let me come out. And so I got out there, and then I'm crawling over mounds of things, which of course is in the video, and I'm finding like these great Art Deco figural lamps and cool railway posters from the 20s and 30s. And so I load up the ambulance full. And I'm thinking in my head, like, I'm probably going to owe them like $5 or $6 grand for all this stuff I picked out already. And I have a whole house that I haven't gone through. So I just said, what would you guys take for the whole thing? That's how that went. Because I thought, well, then I phoned Melissa and I said, if we get it at a good enough price, even if the house has to get knocked down, then we'll get our money back out of all the inventory. We'll have some interesting content for YouTube, and we'll probably just break even. I wasn't expecting to find all of her lost art and her drawings and her poetry and all those other wonderful things that were in the house. And yeah, it turned into a story. And I wasn't expecting at that moment that ambulance I drove to her house, that I'd end up taking her to the cemetery in it. It was a whole thing.
It's
Yeah.
all amazing the timing on how it all worked though too, because she was able to know before she had passed away that you were doing this. You know what I mean? And so that it was
Yeah.
like it was meant to be. I mean, it was almost like a fate thing that had happened.
She was so sharp at 102 that she hadn't been in parts of that house in probably 40 years, because there was like, Mr. Tio's were still on the shelf, like,
Yes.
when was the last time somebody ate Mr. Tio's, like, or Elf cereal? And I'm like, well, that's weird. But there's parts of the house, but she would say, if you go in the corner on the left-hand side in the bottom drawer, you're going to find a book of poetry that's really special to me. And of course, I dig out 50 or 40 years worth of stuff out of there, garbage. And I get to that drawer. Sure enough, there it is. She knew where everything was in that whole house, and she was sharp as a tack right to the very end.
It's amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So I guess to answer your question, Michael, I hope to have more adventures like that. Yeah. And not necessarily just have to worry about stocking a store endlessly.
Stuff.
Well, yeah, see, that's kind of what
I was getting from it, though, is that it seems that to me, the way that I was hearing it, is that it was more than things. It was more than objects that you were really trying to, I guess, focus on. There were, whether it was your story or other people's story, it seems that while you enjoyed it and that you have you enjoyed it, but there seems to me to be a passion maybe that lies within you that you want to really bring that forth and make that really the focus. And all of the other stuff is great, but they're adornments to this.
I guess if I could kind of think of it in a very clear sense, I love to leave things better than when I found them, whether it's a car or a house, or anything. I love to leave things better than I found them. And so I have the passion for me is to take something like Mary's house and bring it back to life. And now there's a family living in it, or our store, which had a caved in roof in the back and was more or less abandoned, and make it into this beautiful central hub for the neighborhood again. And so although we're selling the store and we won't be the prime caretaker of it, we made sure that it's going to people who wanted it for its character and its architecture, with the little ice cream shop that's going in there. So it is going to be good people that are part of that community. And I think those are the lasting things, that are indelibly stamped in a neighborhood when you get to be a part of that journey. And for me, that's much more exciting than saying I made like $10 on selling a Hot Wheel car or something. Like, right. That's a nice side effect. I'm like, okay, that's cool. But bringing a general store back to life after, it's been there for 100 years, and giving it back to the community as a viable retail space, or Mary's house back, or Betty Jones' legacy of being this amazing fashionista piano teacher. Those are the things that drive me more than anything. And I can't tell you how much joy it brings me. I stay in touch with Adam all the time, and he sends me videos where he's busy working, and people just love the work he's doing. And he's like one of the top drywall guys out in his area now, and he's got this fairly big company with getting big contracts. And for life's journey, there are just so many more things that are interesting to me than just simply buying and selling stuff. And so I want to shed the storefront to free me up to do more of those sorts of things that I'm passionate about. And I hope if people want to continue on with my journey of what I'm doing, I hope they do. But I'm confident enough that my life isn't over, and I still plan interesting things, that even if some people decide, I only was here to see him make $5 on a Hot Wheel car, if they go away, that I'll find new people who follow in what I'm passionate about.
Well, and we were talking about that a little bit at the beginning of the show, about how, we with our content, trying to do things a little bit more where it's not just, I'm going into a store, I'm buying things, I'm selling them, I'm selling, to put more meat into it, and not necessarily have it completely only revolving around reselling. Maybe
because otherwise it becomes very sort of just mercenary, and you could buy and sell a bottle of bleach and it'd be about as interesting. I mean, that's why I'm talking about the stories behind things, because like real people made this, and they were here, and this was what they spent their lives doing, and let's have some honor and respect for that. And when I think back on projects I've done and stuff, the ones that really stick out are the ones where we were able to preserve a story, or at least get things that might have been otherwise thrown into dumpster to people who really treasured them and had some connection. We had a house in Seattle, and it was a horrible thing. They had to send in a hazmat team and take 5 dumpsters of stuff out before we could even go in there. And the only reason we took the sale was, and it was the same thing, Alex, afterwards I sort of choked and coughed for a while, and it probably wasn't the healthiest place to be. But the only reason we took the sale is that the surviving spouse had outlived the other by 45 years. And we had pictures from when the spouse was there of the house, beautiful with these nice antiques, which we knew were at the bottom of this horrible hoarded pile. And so we're emptying out this house, and the guy who had bought the house was, oh yeah, well, I'm going to knock it down and put up like a 6-plex because it's Seattle and the prices have all run up. And as we're clearing out this house, I realized that, because at first he said, sell all the architectural pieces. And we're like, oh, okay, well, that'll be great. We'll get the salvage people in here. We'll make a bunch of money. And as I'm looking at this house, as we're taking the things and unburying it, especially in the basement, I realized, yes, it needs everything. It needs a roof. It needs electric. It needs plumbing. But it had a solid foundation. There wasn't a lot of wood rot. And I'm looking at this house and realizing it is the last American Foursquare in this entire neighborhood that has not already been renovated. Wow. And I just started to get really sentimental about it. So I called the guy and said, I want you to come meet me at the house. And we walked around, and I said, the foundation's good and this and this. And I said, I know that you want us to sell the architectural stuff. I just want to ask you one more time. And by the time we got done talking, he said, you know what, you're right. I won't make as much money, but I can still do very well with this house, just renovating it. And I'm convinced, don't sell any of the architectural stuff. And they preserve the house. And I felt really good about that, even though we aced ourselves out of a bunch of money, because we saved this structure. And it had a guy who was almost 100 who had lived there most of his life. So it was like, that story got to live. And I just thought that was more important than selling a clawfoot bathtub. Someone can get a clawfoot bathtub somewhere else.
Yeah, I agree.
Guys, and I think that's really, and I promised Miss Day I wasn't going to bring this up, and I'm not going to get super deep like I got.
You got deep with me early when we were, you don't know, Michael and I talk about 9,000 times a day, and he was getting
I went off
deep.
The deep end is what I did. I went off the deep end. I'm not going to get that deep with it. But to me, it's interesting because we were talking about this earlier, more specifically, the idea or the concept of buying and selling, the business aspect of it, but the crux behind it being, their stewardship, right? It is the preservation. It is the taking care of. It is not seeing these things bulldozed and having, an apartment complex put up over it. It's the preservation. It's taking care of what once was and carrying that forth, because it does contain a story, because it does contain a history. And I think that it does speak to, a certain sentiment, whether you're a collector or a reseller, an enthusiast. There is an idea of wanting to preserve history and the memory and the story of those things. So it does mean, I don't know, it makes me really happy when I hear other people speak of those things, because it's not the dollar, it's not the value, right? It's not how much I can make out of it. It's, I'm saving this from a landfill. I'm saving this from being torn down and discarded and forgotten. You know what I mean?
And that's the thing, though. I feel like when I'm going out and I'm filming my shopping videos, it's just like, what am I going to buy today that's going to make me money? And even though this is what I do for a living, this is how I earn my living. I buy things and I resell them. I just so happen to do them live and not on a brick and mortar. But I feel like it's just like, I want more than that.
Well, you are educating people, right? So,
Yes, but at the same time, I feel like I'm educating people as to maybe know what things are, but not necessarily what the value of that thing is, because prices can be a little inflated at an auction, at any auction. Doesn't mean it's just my auction, Michael's auction, any auction. I've gone to auctions, like in-person auctions, and I've bought things and I was like, dang, I just what did I do? I didn't stop. I had a number in my brain and I kept going, So I don't think that, stating the value, the appropriate value of resale for an item is clear. You know what I mean? But stating like what an item is and identifying that item possibly, but
Well, and this is part of why I came into antiques and vintage at a very young age, and I'm so glad I did, because if I was just selling, no offense to anybody out there who sells new stuff, because obviously that's what makes the world go round, but that's just not what matters to me personally. Yes, I have to make a living doing this, but I specifically chose to stay in the antique and vintage field because of those other factors, because that's what resonated with me. And I like being around people who have that same feeling. And, we are not that large a group. I mean, I think there was a study done once, and like 1% of the population considers themselves to be a serious collector of something.
That scares me in a way. It scares me not because of the business, but again, it's the idea or the concept of what are we losing? Like, what are we gaining by those things? Is it technology? You know what I mean? And I guess there's certain advantages if we as users use them as tools. I fear that we use it for the social aspects, but are we using it to elevate ourselves? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, what's the trade-off there?
Well, that's
I'm being very abstract.
Topic that I can't answer.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what's on your shirt, though? I have to ask. Is that fishing lures? Like, it's a very vintage-looking shirt you're wearing. You got to tell me.
Oh, this?
Yeah.
Birds of Paradise, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the flowers. Yeah, no, it's kind of hard to see up close, but yeah, I like old Hawaiian shirts, and I like ones that actually were made in Hawaii. I don't generally buy imports that look alike, so that's just kind of my gig. I started
I'm
a long
digging
time
it.
ago. I've seen it go in style, out of style, in style. The great thing about vintage fashion is that once you're out of style, you can just do whatever you want, and someday you'll be in style for a moment again.
Yeah, the 90s are back now. It's great.
Right.
That's what we talk about, like collectibles rotating. We went to this very trendy clothing store for my daughter the other day, and the mannequins look like me from 1996, like the middle part hair with the college style jacket, the Converse Chuck Taylors. I'm like, I had that in 95. Like, that's a thing now. It's like what's old is new.
Don't tell your daughter, or she'll be like, oh.
No, she thinks she knows best anyway, so that's
right.
But she was all after getting these pants, and they're called like window pane pants. They were popular in the late 60s and 70s, but the girls are wearing them now. They're like a flare bottom, and they have like little patches of denim that form the pants.
Yep.
So she really had to have those, and people were like, "Oh, I had those in 71 or 72."
We saw a lot of people this past weekend in bell bottoms. So they're coming back, George.
Yeah, I know. And I got rid of all of mine because I remember my childhood in Washington State, and you would go to school in bell bottoms that weighed 3 pounds. And by the time they were soaking wet when you were walking home, they weighed about 30 pounds.
Yeah.
And they were not very smart, but we
What about riding a bicycle with like flared bottom pants of some sort, like they get caught on everything?
I'm 5'3", and I do not need anything that makes my legs look smaller. Like little, no.
You're 5'3". You project more as a 5'5", at least.
Yeah, at least. Yeah, no, I have a big personality, but yeah, I'm only 5'3". Pat, I turned off super chats just because, but thank you for offering. But I don't like that Google takes 30% of them. So
yeah,
I turned them off. So if you want to support my channel, just watch my videos, give me a thumbs up, and that's good enough for me.
He can
Heather
mail you
met us
some of
in
that pizza he's
Ohio.
talking
She
about.
never said anything.
Do what?
Heather met us in Ohio, but she never said anything. Do you remember somebody giving you chairs while we were eating?
No.
Heather says we were at the tent eating, and she gave chairs to Misty, and she sat in shock. She didn't say anything.
I
Heather
sat in shock.
No,
they
Heather
did.
did.
They do.
Oh.
I-
Hi, Heather.
Hi, Heather.
I just want to mention this since this is up here because I do a lot of real world shows and I seem to be doing more appearances lately. And I just want to tell you, I had at the show at Mount Dora, the last one I did, this couple walked by the booth. I was really busy. They got like 40 feet away on the next aisle. And then the guy turns around and comes back to me and says, "Oh, hey, we watch your channel." I'm like, "We? Oh, who's we?" "Oh, well, that's my wife, but she's scared to meet you." And I was like, "Get over here." And I made her come over and meet me. Don't be afraid of us, folks. I mean,
No.
we're very friendly and we love meeting people.
It's very weird though, because I just see myself as just
A person.
yeah. And it's like, oh, hi, Miss. And sometimes when you're walking around and you're just minding your own business, like we were in Nashville, Tennessee, so we weren't near anybody from my town. And a couple times people were like, "Oh, hi, Misty," and I'm like, "How do you know my name?" Like I go there, like, how do they know my name? And you kind of have to think about it. But no, I love it too. It's very weird, but it's very kind and it's very endearing. So Heather, thank you for giving us your chair. I wish you would have said hi. And
Did you make her stand? Was she like, she gave her her own chair and she just had to stand there eating her food at the table all awkward? Like,
here's the thing. It was so hot that day. We were so hot. And we actually left early because Michael and I were both like, "Oh, I can't.
I said, I'm going to go to this thing every single day. And I was like, I want to come here tomorrow. I don't want to be here tomorrow.
That was the first time Michael and I met, and we are flying out to Colorado in July.
Well, maybe I'll have to coordinate because I got family in Colorado.
Yeah,
really?
I am planning a trip to Colorado around that time.
We will definitely. Now we'll be with Sarah and David, a bunch of resellers. Sarah and David, the traveling button, and on Instagram, and we are going to be picking. I am going to be sitting my butt in a hot spring at some point. Somewhere.
I would say I do kind of want to sit in the spring. I don't want to like go hiking and like pass out from oxygen deprivation.
Well, we're worried about that. We're worried about the altitude.
Oh, you know what? So last time I was in Colorado Springs,
that's
the first time I went there, I had met my sister for the very first time. Like I didn't know I had a sister. I went out there and I met her. And she's like, "Well, I'm your older sister, so we got to do some sibling stuff." So she took me straight from the airport to a go-kart track. And it was one of those really intense electric ones that goes super fast. And I was already starting to feel a little bit woozy from the altitude. I was darn near going to puke the rest of that day. It took me 2 or 3 days to recover from go-karts at high altitude. I was like, "Oh, this is really nice and everything, but so
no go-karts.
Don't go in the go-karts."
No go-karts.
She did that. That's a very older sister thing to do to their younger brother.
She whooped my butt. Heather's got skills on the go-kart track. But this is the weird thing. And then we find out that we also have a brother that my dad was a bit, what can I say? my dad was a popular guy back in the day. Anyway.
So was mine.
We found out we have a brother. Where does he live? Colorado, 45 minutes from Heather.
Wow, that's
really.
So now I've not met him yet. So I'm going out there. I'm hoping this summer, like seriously, July, August, after we get the house all set up. He's the cool thing about him. This is the time I talked to him. And I'm like, "Cool, you know what?" I'm telling him about our dad and stuff. He's, "Well, let me send you some pictures." And I'm like, whoa. Is that a 1970 Cuda in your driveway? And I'm like, "What is going on here?" And he's like, "Yeah, I kind of collect stuff. I got a basement full of junk and people say I'm a whore." I'm like, "What?" So, and he's like, "Yeah, I got 60s rock concert posters and I got boxes of old toy cars." And I'm like, "Oh man, don't try and pick your brother's, but you haven't even met him yet. You can't even be excited about the antiques yet." But he wants to take me to a flea market out there that he goes to that apparently is full of cool stuff.
It's hereditary. Awesome. I mean,
it might be.
It is like we're what's that word I'm looking for?
Predisposed.
to the collecting, the history. I really do. I think that if it's in our blood sometimes. It really is.
Now, Alex, speaking of that, I know your dad was really into this. Is that how you got into it? I don't actually know how you got started in this antique and vintage stuff.
No, my dad was a musician when he was younger. And so he had an interest in records, specifically music to listen to, not necessarily to collect. But he would occasionally go and he'd look for like old Howdy Doody toys and Roy Rogers stuff from his generation that he liked. But mainly, I don't know. It's not necessarily a super happy story. My folks were having a tough go of things and having a hard time paying rent. And we ended up actually living in a really gross motel and on people's couches, essentially without a home. I wouldn't say homeless because we weren't on the street, but we didn't have a place to call home. And I went around to yard sales, walked around neighborhoods on the weekends looking for things that I could buy to resell to help my folks out. And so I would go and buy like a broken down dinky toy and I'd polish it all up with the toothbrush and car polish and stuff. And I'd post it for sale in the paper because that's how long ago that was.
Right.
And then like people would come, I'd meet. And then eventually I had enough inventory to do antique shows. And I was 9 or 10 years old, basically.
Wow.
And eventually things got better for my folks, but I always kind of had that skill. And it was always, maybe that's why I'm not attached to things, is because my reason for collecting was that it was a means to an end. I was finding something cool. I was learning about it. And at school, I would check out reference books and I would check out like Cavell's antique guides and stuff like that. I'd go through price guides for fun, and read about history so that I could better educate myself. So if I went to a yard sale or went to a flea market or something, I could like laser scope, find the thing of value. So if we needed food or if we needed rent or whatever, that I could have that skill to help out. And I just kind of kept doing it, to the point where I ended up having a booth at an antique mall for a while. I think Crazy Lamp Lady does the antique malls, right? She's got a booth. Yeah, so I had a booth at an antique mall and I was doing well at it. And somebody at work was like, man, you should just do that full time. You're making more money doing that than you are here. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give that a go. And I did. And now I'm going to go back to just basically selling direct online through auction. But yeah, it was more of a necessity thing than anything for me.
Interesting.
You're self-taught. You're self-taught.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Self-taught, but it's also you got it in your veins, that love of collecting and seeking out the history behind certain things.
Well, there's only so many ways that like a 9-year-old, 10-year-old kid can, earn $20, $30, $40 off of stuff, right?
Right.
I tried raking leaves. I tried like shoveling snow, and that paid like, 50 cents or $1. I'm like, well, this sucks. It's a lot of work. But then I remember that one of the first garage sales I went to, my big score when I was a kid, I went to a yard sale in this neighborhood and the people had owned a general store, kind of like the one my store's set up in right now. And they closed it in the 70s and they brought all their old inventory to their garage and it sat there since then. Wow. So we're talking like the old True Action metal football games, and they had old model kits from the 60s. Everything was still in the box. And so I had like very little money, but I bought as much as I could and then I resold it for a good profit. And that kind of got me on the kick. A couple of good scores like that, I bought a giant cardboard box, like a 4 cubic foot box of collector coins from the teens and 20s that were in the holders, and they were selling them to me for face value. And in fact, I think I bought like $25 of face value silver coins. They're like, you're just a kid. You can have it for 20. I'm like, gee, thanks. And I'm tugging at my dad's sleeve going, they're giving us money for free. And he's like, I'm not wasting any money on that stuff, right? He's probably thinking we need gas money or whatever, right? But I'm like, but it's free money. And we walked away from a whole other box of it. And I was like, a part of my brain was like, I will never let this happen again.
Yeah, it stayed with you.
And I sold all that stuff and I bought a motorcycle with it. With the $20 investment was enough for me to buy my first scooter, a Honda 50 Cub, when I was in grade 7.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Growing up with my dad and going to the flea markets and the garage sales and the estate sales and all that stuff as a child, I didn't really have to, my story was very different from yours. Mine was, I was seeking out things like he got me started on salt and pepper shakers, or like little figurines basically. But his thing was just to keep me quiet. Misty, why don't you go look for some salt and pepper shakers, because I was like, blah, 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 talking his ear off. But then that kind of led to, not only I have this soft spot in my heart for little figurines and salt and pepper shakers. So it all kind of started from that. But do your kids care a lot about the stuff, or are they just kind of like,
my kids are interested in the history of items, but not necessarily in owning it. Like Steven has a small coin collection of Roman coins and things like that. But none of my kids really collect. And a lot of people were saying, I can't believe you're selling your store. Maybe your kids want to take over someday. No, not only do they aren't showing an inclination to do that, I don't want to force them to do something that they don't want to do. Like I want them to live their best life and follow their dreams, and do what they want to do. This was my dream, to have the shop and to buy and sell and see if I could do this professionally. And I feel like I accomplished it. But
I think so. Yeah.
And so they'll live their life. And now I've got my oldest son, Steven, is more interested in being like fitness and exercising. And he's like works out at the gym every day. He's going to be like a tank before long. Like my kid. So no, they got their own stuff that they're doing.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Because sometimes I think that you don't want to put that pressure on them that they have to carry on the legacy of it either. You want them to live their own, you want them to go after their own dreams. And
your dreams can change.
Mine did.
Yeah. What were you doing for work before this, Misty?
I was teaching.
Were you?
And preschool teacher and early childhood education teacher and reading remediation. And I loved it. And at that time, that I thought that was my calling. I thought that's what I was put on this earth to do. And I still love like working with children. I love reading to children, but I don't like all the other stuff that goes along with it. The bureaucracy and stuff of it,
right.
Isn't the greatest. The parents aren't always the greatest.
Yeah.
But I think that this to me, it just seems like I'm just I cannot wait to get up and go to work every morning. I can't, and I can't say that when I was teaching. I can't say that. I mean, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't where I cannot wait to get out the door and get into my space and get started.
That's funny you should say it, because Melissa, my wife, is a preschool teacher as well.
Yeah.
But she's also the administrator of the preschool, so she doesn't have a boss. She is her own boss.
She is the boss.
She is the boss. But, we were chatting the other day, and she said, if I wasn't doing this, I think I might really want to work with senior citizens, because she really likes to hear their stories and to talk. Yeah. She's like, maybe I could like play cards with them and stuff. I'm like, well, maybe that's something you want to do. I don't know. But we'll see. So far, she seems happy.
I mean, I know that they would really appreciate that. I know that probably the activities directors in nursing homes would welcome that, to her just to come and volunteer just to see if it's something that she might want to eventually do. And I can see your daughter maybe liking to go in there too a little bit and play cards and stuff in there as well. But I know everyone always tries to get me to read. I can't, because it's probably some sort of copyright, something that I can't read on YouTube, because I'll probably get sued or they'll shut me down or something.
The feds will come for you.
What?
The feds are going to finally come for you.
Yeah. Finally. They found me. They finally found me.
The tipping point is reading like Curious George on a chat one day. All right, that does it. Get her.
I really love books. Like I love Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. I very much like the books that you have to stop and everybody gets animated. Those are my favorite kinds of books.
Did you ever read Robert Munch books there? Was that a thing?
Oh, yeah.
He's Canadian.
Oh, yeah. Alex, I love Canada. In my videos, whenever I see anything Canada, I do my "Oh Canada," because I have a lot of Canadian viewers and they know my love of potato chip ketchup potato chips.
They are pretty good.
They keep me stocked. I have probably 15 bags of ketchup potato chips at the shop. I'm a little sick of them. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh.
But just because I've had a lot of them. But yeah, I love the ketchup chips. Canada has good snacks.
One of my viewers brought down Macintoshes and Aero bars, and I was so excited, and I think I hoovered them all up in about a day.
Yeah, Canada has good snacks. I've been to Canada as a child, and I remember my dad, we would hide the Canadian beer in the car when we were going
Oh.
over the border. And I remember as a child thinking, we're going to go to jail. We're all going to go to jail, you know, because we would go to Canada up through northern Michigan. We would go up that way.
Through Michigan. So you're probably in around Ontario and that kind of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just remember as a child, and I thought it was the biggest deal ever going over the bridge. There's the American flag on one side and the Canadian flag. And I thought I was something else going out of the country.
Oh,
Worldly
you were
traveler.
to St. Marie, weren't you? That's right.
Through St. Marie. Yeah. Yeah.
So where is everybody located? Where are you guys?
I'm in southern Indiana.
Okay. And Michael, you are as well?
No,
No, sadly.
Oh, but it sounds like you guys hang out a lot.
Oh, well,
every day we do.
We've only physically been together one time, but for
Oh,
the
I
past
see. So digitally.
yeah,
Okay.
for the past
Virtual,
3 years,
yes.
we talk on average. How many times a day would you say, Michael? 30? Maybe?
Not 30. Not 30.
Okay. A lot. A lot.
We do. We've definitely talked a lot every day for 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Now George is just everywhere.
George is the nomad.
He's the
yeah,
nomad.
It's true. I come by that name, honestly. I originally from Seattle, used to travel up to Vancouver and shop at the Terminal Avenue Flea Market a lot, and Cloverdale, BC, and loved it up there because you'd see a lot of English things and a lot of different things. I found one of the rarest pieces. I wrote the book on treasure craft pottery and pottery craft stoneware, and one of the rarest pieces I ever found. In fact, the first piece that got me started collecting, which is on the cover of the book, is the Drummer Boy, and I got that in a thrift shop in Vancouver, along with the Hula Girl, and was like, wow, these are great. But I spend winters in Florida, and now I spend a lot of my year, especially spring and fall, in Kentucky, because when COVID started, I was kind of stranded, and my family friends there took me in, and I go and do a lot of this shows in the Midwest now because of that. And it's nice because even though I don't get to see her too often, Misty's like 4 hours away, and I get to Pennsylvania once in a while because that's now somewhere in the loop too. So I love the travel. I mean, it gets exhausting, but I do love it's just so interesting to see the variation of in the old days, it wasn't like now where Walmart has the same thing in every Walmart in the entire world. Things were more expensive east or west of the Mississippi, depending where they were made. So you didn't see things were regional, and you still see the residue of that when you travel. And actually, it's interesting to me, and even more now doing YouTube, to see how the interest in certain things is regional. Like you were talking about, Calgary is still very much into the Western, and Edmonton is into something else. And that's absolutely true throughout the United States. I mean, if I have cast iron or Crocs that are really good, I take them to Kentucky, and people are like, oh, and in Kentucky has money. I'm like, oh, they do for those things.
Yes, they do.
Where else? And if I find mid-century modern in Kentucky, I take it to Seattle or Florida because I like it there. So it's interesting. So so I'm a man of the world. Well, this world anyway.
You are. Well, and it's fun though, because you can pick up things in Florida, like the Crocs and stuff that really aren't selling in Florida, and you load all those up, and then you take those to Kentucky, and then when you're in Kentucky, you load up all the mid-century modern. Although that's starting to get a little bit harder to find down in these parts. It's starting to become a lot more collectible than what it used to be.
It's more of a thing. It's kind of everywhere now. It's the generation. I mean, it's the target market. I would say, looking at the four of us, that we are all exactly the age of where people start to really collect if they're going to get into it. This is the age group. And that means a lot of people's nostalgia is 1960s, 70s, 80s.
60s.
Not you.
Michael's the baby. Michael's the baby.
Okay, 90s.
He's not that much younger than me, but he is younger than me.
You can give me 80s. I'm okay with that. We're out of the 80s.
I'm a 70s girl.
I'm a little of all of it.
Actually, Alex might be a little younger. Well, maybe you don't. Are you a 70s or an 80s?
What do you think?
I think he's 80s.
I think he's 80s too. Well, I think he's an 80s child, but I'm just basing that off of the age of his children.
I'm basing it off of the fact that he knew what 80s fashion looked like.
Yeah. No, I was born in 1962.
You were not.
No.
You were not.
I was like, dang, get them jeans.
No. I am a child of 7. I was born in 78. So there you go.
I was born in 75.
Oh, see there, that's close.
See? Michael's born in 1994.
No, I wasn't.
Well, he wouldn't remember any of that fashion that's come back, and you'll be like, "What's with all this?"
No, but I do remember and that's what trips me out, because I'm like, because for me, they want to dress like we did, but I was like, but see, back when we were in high school, it was like cool to go in and get like the 70s print and the bell bottoms.
Yep.
Right.
And now y'all are starting to come up with and I'm like, this is getting really creepy. Or they're like walking around with like Nirvana t-shirts and Red Hot Chili. And I'm like, I kind of feel offended right now. Like, I feel attacked. You know what I mean? Like,
The bell bottoms and the Nirvana and all that was college for me. The flannels, the very grunge, that was
like
the Doc Martens.
Doc Martens.
I lived in Seattle when that was happening, so that really makes me feel old. Those guys were just hanging around on the street, and that's who we saw when we went to the bars on the weekends, and we were just like, oh, they'll always be here. No one's going to like this music.
Yeah.
But it's funny, though. So your shirt is retro, almost kind of like 50s flair, right? But I remember in the 80s when the 50s was really fashionable, and they had like those retro diners with like cars cut in half. You could sit in like a diner booth and all that stuff. Elvis and Marilyn Monroe and Betty Boop was big in the 80s and early 90s. But then if you look back at 1970s, like Sears catalogs, they had retro 20s outfits that they were kind of pushing on people then. It's like, what in the 1800s, we were like, you know what's in right now? Wearing just like, you know, grogs, like thing, you know, with a club. Like, this is what's in right now. Dressed like a cave person. Like, how long has retro been retro? You know?
Yeah.
There's some truth to that. Fashion definitely cycles, and if you look at Goatee prints and what they were hearkening back to, they're hearkening back to like 18th century French fashion, but those were done in the mid 19th century. So yeah, it all comes around again.
Well, I'm always actively seeking out fashion catalogs. I just sold some last night. They were interior Sherwin-Williams from the 1950s. Catalogs, but oh my gosh, the graphics were great in them, of all these kitchens and bedrooms and stuff. But the fashion ephemera and stuff is stuff that I've really been kind of seeking out and digging in a box and at the bottom of a shelf of an antique mall, because people are like, ooh, I don't want to go through all this ephemera, and I'm like, I do. I will take all of the ephemera. I love paper, old vintage paper.
It is fun to look through. I look back at I think that if Melissa had her way, probably the 1950s color palette would be like her happy place, like the corals and the floral and the bright blues. Like that's where she loves that type of stuff.
I'm there with her. Yeah.
And they haven't been so bold to say, I don't know if the 70s will ever come back when you have like avocado green stoves or harvest gold, you know.
They are.
Imagine.
I heard, and I believe it because of the source, I heard that they had to call the police at a sale, an estate sale in Southern California, because two people were having going to have a brawl over which one got the avocado refrigerator out of the house.
Oh, brother.
Well, you said Southern California. Say no more. I get it.
But I tell you what, those avocado refrigerators, I bet you it still works. And I'll bet you it still works great.
You know, I don't even have to be there to know what it smells like, though. Like that rubbery old refrigerator smell.
Yeah,
we all know it.
Yeah,
those appliances from the 70s, like they would probably survive an atomic bomb. I mean, they make appliances now to last like 6 years, and then
they make them for us to throw them out and replace them.
Horrible. That's horrible.
That's why I have a 1960s avocado wearing blender.
There you go.
But see, people pay good money for those too.
And it's got a glass thing, yeah. And I saw one for $8 at a thrift store the other day and was like, well, I think I'm the only weirdo. And then I went and looked on eBay, and like 30 of them have sold for $35 a piece in the last week. I'm like, oh, why didn't I get that?
Probably even just the glass blender.
Just the glass insert, yep.
I mean, I don't know. I'm going to say it on camera, but I think done right, those rusted, because, it was like burnt orange and like rust and the browns and the avocado. I think if done well, though, and I guess it's the nostalgia hitting me, but I think that those can look really nice and homey. Maybe not so much an avocado stove or refrigerator, or God forbid a toilet, but I think done well. They speak to me. Those colors speak to me. They say childhood.
Always repeat. I mean, those 70s colors were actually popular in the 30s, and they were popular in the 19 teens. I mean, different variation, but everything comes back. Everything repeats, especially these days, because if they get where sales are suddenly low, they go back and they're like, well, what used to sell, or what can we change? I mean, right now, everything's changing over to gray interiors because earth tones were around too long and we can't sell anybody anything new. So now we have to get them to all like gray again, which is why I think pink depression glass and things like that and Hull pottery might make a big comeback in the collector marketplace.
Well, we have been experiencing that Weller, Roseville, and Hull.
Milk glass, clear glass. I'm telling you.
Well,
it's the wave of the future.
It could be.
Hull and Roseville and Weller have been doing very well lately, and I like to see pottery is starting to make a comeback again, and it's being appreciated. But just trying. I think sometimes it's good to let people know how to treat their pottery and not let water sit in it for an extended amount of time. I think that's because we've all found those beautiful pieces and they've just let water sit in it for years and it's all that crazing and stuff. But lately I've been finding some really good pottery pieces that I'm excited about.
Early in my career, I was making a delivery. This is when Victorian furniture was really hot, and we sold these folks owned a golf course, and they had this restaurant, and they bought this Victorian banquet table, and we're delivering it, and she goes off to get the money, and they had an old vase that had been sitting there, it seemed like, for a really long time. And I picked it up to look at the mark, and I turned it over, and this brown water just went gushing all over the table. And I'm like wiping it up with my shirt. And the guy who was with me is like, oh my God, I think I've got a paper towel. And we're like cleaning it up as fast as we can. And she came in the room, and we must have looked like the cat that just ate the mouse. We're like,
yeah. See, I myself collect the pottery, like the ironstone, and I've got some pieces like this. I collect the pieces that have those crazing. I like the ones that show that they've been used. Like, that's just my personal aesthetic. I like the history of it. I like to know that somebody poured their water and they served their family from this picture. But, some people don't want any crazing on it. So
sure, I was just gonna say leather furniture or leather jackets look so much better when they have a little bit of wear to them, and it gets like brown where people have been moving against them and things. It has a lot of character.
Yeah, I like those pieces, like the yellow wear that has the crazing marks and that's brown and the brown staining, and I like that myself. Those are the pieces that I buy for myself to keep for my own collections, and then I'll sell the pristine ones. But I don't know. I like the ones that have been used. I like the history of it.
There you go.
The history of it.
There you go.
I'm looking at our backdrops and wondering if we can identify the minimalist amongst us. And I would say Michael has nothing.
Well, I tell you, Michael is a minimalist. He kind of is I'm not.
I'm not a minimalist. But no, I'm at work.
Oh, I thought unless that's a blue tarp hiding your hoard behind you.
No, this is the blue wall. I did paint this wall, though. I will have everybody know. I did paint this wall.
It looks like it's primed for special effects, like a blue screen. You
can
have
and apparently,
you look like you're going down a roller coaster. Next time you get up the ante on the live stream and have a roller coaster behind you.
Wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me. Mhm.
Yeah, no, I like my squeakers and I like Ruthie Newton and all those things. But see that shelf, like I'll have those collections for a little while and then it'll be something else.
I am not at Goodwill. Ban that real nifty vintage down there. I see him saying
Oh, little
it
baby
is
Jeff
Goodwill
Jeff.
Blue, though, isn't it? It is Goodwill Blue.
Little baby
Yeah,
Jeff and I tuckered
Doesn't
him
agree
out.
with me.
He's so worn out. He couldn't even have his live sale today because I wore him out. We shopped. He's so tired. He had to sleep on my couch all weekend because somebody didn't read the directions of his Airbnb.
Fine print will get you.
Right. Well, I apologize
Yeah,
for having to log out fairly soon.
no,
My
this-
phone is
No,
about to die, and that's what I'm on.
It's 10 o'clock. That's pumpkin time for me. I like to be done at 10 o'clock. I go to bed early. I like to get up early. Thank you really so much. I think this is a really good discussion tonight. And I really appreciate Alex. I know that you're very busy with everything that you have going on right now. So I really and truly appreciate you coming on. And I know Melissa's in the chat too. Thank you both so much. I'm looking forward to seeing your new adventures, and we'll all be there right there with you, watching and rooting for you. And it's just, I think that you are a breath of fresh air. You're both. It's great seeing you and your family go on this journey together.
Yeah, it is absolutely wonderful. I'm really glad that we got to spend some time talking because I've always enjoyed what you do, and what you're going to do in the future is going to be great in maybe a slightly different variation on the theme, but yeah, we'll be here for it.
We will. And
Well, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, George. I know you've been busy all weekend too with your retreat and doing all that kind of stuff. So George and I are going to have a sale at the end of May together. So I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be coming up very soon. And Michael and I will be having a live sale tomorrow, 1:00 Eastern on my YouTube channel. And so I hope that you guys will join that. But thank you guys so much. And thank you everybody in the chat for participating. Like I say, we're up on the screen, but to see all of you participating and communicating with one another is a great thing to see. So thank you guys so much. And with that, we'll go ahead and end it. Make sure you guys are following. I did put everybody's links in the description. I put George's TikTok because he's awesome at the TikTok right now. So they're all in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Thank you, everyone.